In the village of Umucheke, there were tall hills, flowing rivers, and grain trees everywhere. People in the village were always busy. Women cooked and cleaned, while men worked in the fields. In the middle of the village was Obinna's small hut, where he wove colorful fabrics. Everyone loved his work, but they didn't see the man behind the loom. He was quiet and shy, so people often forgot about him. He felt lonely, while others laughed and played. As the sun set, Obinna looked out of his window and wished he had someone who cared about him. Obinna was very good at weaving. His fingers moved quickly, creating beautiful patterns on the loom. He used bright colors and designs that reminded him of the village, the green hills, the blue rivers, and the orange sunsets. Traders from far away came to buy his works and praise him for his talent. But their words didn't make Obinna happy. He wanted someone who loved him, not just his weaving. When he looked at the threads in his hands, he wondered, will anyone ever love me for who I am, not what I make? One day, Obinna decided to tell Nneka, a girl in the village, how he felt about her. He bought her a bouquet of pretty flowers and said, Nneka, I like you very much. Will you be my friend? Nneka smiled kindly, but shook her head. You are nice, Obinna, she said, but you're too quiet. I want someone exciting and fun. Her words made Obinna sad. He walked back to his hut, his head low. He sat by his loom and cried softly. Maybe I'll always be alone, he whispered. That night, Obinna couldn't sleep. The moonlight shone through his window as he sat on the floor, thinking he remembered how the other men in the village were loud and confident. Everyone seemed to like them. Why don't they see me? He asked himself. He looked at his unfinished cloth on the loom. Its threads tangled like his thoughts. He didn't want to be lonely anymore. I'll find a way to show my heart, he decided. His idea was risky, but he felt he had no other choice. As Obinna walked on the loom, an idea came to him. He thought, what if I pretended to be blind? Then people might see who I really am, and not just what I do. The thought scared him, but it also made him feel hopeful. He smiled a little for the first time in days. Tomorrow, I'll start my plan, he said. Maybe then, someone will care for me, not because of my weaving, but because of my heart. Obinna sat in his small kitchen, eating roasted yam and palm oil. The room was quiet, except for the sound of crickets outside. He thought about how other families in the village ate together, laughing and talking. His heart felt heavy. He looked at the tablecloths he had made and traced his patterns with his fingers. What's the use of making beautiful things if I had no one to share them with? He wondered. His loneliness made him even more sure about his plan to pretend to be blind. Obinna thought about when he was a little boy, while other children played games and ran in the fields. He liked to sit under a big tree and watch the birds. His mother used to worry about him. Go play with the others, she would say, but Obinna was shy. You're special, Obinna, she told him. One day, someone will see that. Her word stayed with him, and now he hoped she was right. He wanted to find someone who could see the kindness in his heart. As the night grew darker, Obinna practiced what he would tell the villagers. The spirits of the forest took my sight, he whispered to himself. He knew people would feel sorry for him and want to help, but deep inside he felt bad for lying. He looked at the small mirror on his wall, and his reflection seemed to frown at him. I have to do this, he said, turning away from the mirror. He hoped his plan would lead to something good. Before going to bed, Obinna finished the cloth he had been working on. The patterns were his best yet, with bright colors and shapes that reminded him of the village. He ran his hands over it, proud, but also sad. If my plan works, I might not weave for a while, he thought. He rolled up the cloth and placed it in a corner. I hope someone sees me for who I am, not just what I make. The next morning, Obinna took a stick and walked slowly through the village, pretending he couldn't see. He stumbled a little, and people ran to help him. What happened, Obinna? A woman asked. The spirit took my sight, he said softly. The villagers felt sorry for him and offered to bring him food. Obinna felt nervous, but also hopeful. Will someone finally care about me? He wondered. As he walked through the village, he felt like a new chapter in his life was beginning. The morning after Obinna began pretending to be blind, News traveled quickly through Umucheke. Did you hear? Obinna lost his sight, one woman whispered to another. People shook their heads in pity. Poor Obinna, an old man said. He was such a good weaver. Obinna stayed inside his hut, pretending to adjust to his new life. Neighbors came by offering food and gifts. Though he felt guilty for lying, Obinna hoped his plan would help him find someone who truly cared for him. As the sun set, he sat alone, wondering if anyone would see the heart behind his life. The next day, Adamma, the healer's kind and beautiful daughter, came to see Obinna. She carried a basket filled with herbs and yams. Obinna, I'm so sorry to hear about your sight, she said softly. I brought this to help you feel better. Obinna, pretending to feel around for her, smiled and said, Thank you, Adamma. You are very kind. Adamma stayed for a while, asking if he needed anything else. As she left, Obinna felt his heart warm. Maybe she sees me for who I truly am, he thought, feeling a small spark of hope. Adamma began visiting Obinna every day. She would sit by the window and tell him stories about the village, how the children played by the river, or how the farmers were preparing for the planting season. Obinna loved listening to her voice. It was soft and comforting, like a gentle breeze. You bring light into my dark world, he said one afternoon. Adamma laughed, thinking he was joking, but Obinna meant it. Each day, her visits became the best part of his life, and he started looking forward to her kind words and cheerful stories. One morning, Adamma brought a special potion her mother had made. This will keep you strong, she said, handing him a wooden bowl. Obinna pretended to carefully feel for it, his fingers brushing hers. Thank you, he said, his voice filled with gratitude. Adamma stayed to help him eat, cutting his food into small pieces and feeding him when he struggled. Obinna's heart swelled with emotion. Why is she so kind to me? He wondered. Though he still felt guilty about his lie, her care made him believe his plans might lead to something good. One afternoon, Adamma suggested they go outside. You can't stay in the dark all the time, Obinna, she said. She guided him through the village, her hand resting gently on his arm. Obinna pretended to stumble, and Adamma steadied him with a laugh. I'll be your eyes, she said. They walked slowly, feeling the warm sun on their faces. Villagers watched and whispered, impressed by Adamma's kindness. Obinna felt happy and sad at the same time. He wished he could tell her the truth, but he feared she might never forgive him. As the days passed, Obinna and Adamma grew closer. She often stayed for hours, telling him about her life and listening to his stories about weaving. I always admired your work, Adamma said one day. It was like you brought the villagers' beauty into your clothes. Obinna felt his face grow warm. Thank you, he said softly. He wanted to tell her more about himself, but he was afraid she might see through his lie. Instead, he listened to her laugh and hoped she was starting to care for him as much as he cared for her. People in the village began to notice Adamma's visit to Obinna's hut. She must really care for him, one woman said. Adamma has such a kind heart, another added. The whispers reached Adamma's mother, Ezine, the village healer. Adamma, why do you spend so much time with Obinna? Ezine asked one evening. Because he needs someone, Mama, Adamma replied. He's alone now, and I want to help. Ezine nodded, but felt there was more to the story. Meanwhile, Obinna heard some of the villagers' comments and felt a mix of happiness and guilt. Adamma and Obinna's friendship grew stronger with each passing day. She brought him food, helped him clean the hut, and even sang for him while he rested. Obinna loved hearing her voice and often closed his eyes, pretending to be lost in the music. You're a blessing, Adamma, he said one evening. Adamma laughed. I'm just doing what anyone would do, she replied. But Obinna knew she was special. Her kindness touched his heart, making him wish he could be honest with her. Still, he was too afraid to risk losing her trust. Obinna often lay awake at night, thinking about Adamma. Her kindness made him feel cared for, but it was also made his lie harder to bear. What if she finds out the truth? He thought. He imagined her angry face, her voice filled with disappointment. The thought made his chest hurt. I didn't mean to trick her, he whispered to himself. I just wanted someone to see me for who I am. He wondered if he should end the lie, but fear held him back. All he could do was hope she would understand someday. One evening, as the sun set, Adamma sat with Obinna outside his hut. The sky was painted with shades of orange and pink. It's beautiful, isn't it? Adamma said, forgetting he couldn't see. Obinna smiled softly. I can imagine it, he replied. Adamma placed her hand on his. You're stronger than you know, Obinna, she said. Her voice made his heart leap. For the first time, he felt like someone truly cared for him. As they sat in silence, Obinna realized he didn't just want her kindness, he wanted her love. As he hoped, someday she might feel the same. One day, when Adamma wasn't looking, Obinna opened his eyes just a little to watch her. He saw her carefully arranging the herbs she brought or placing food neatly on the table. Her face glowed with kindness, and Obinna's heart felt warm. She's so thoughtful, he whispered to himself, but as soon as she turned towards him, he quickly shut his eyes and pretended to be blind again. Guilt pricked his heart, but he couldn't help stealing glances. He wished he could tell her the truth, but he was too scared of losing her. Adama's smile was one of the things Obinna loved most. It was gentle and full of warmth, like the morning sun. Sometimes, when she laughed, he peeked at her face, memorizing every detail. She's not just kind to me, he thought. She's kind to everyone. Watching her made him realize how special she was, but it also made his lie feel heavier. If she knew the truth, would she still smile like that? He wondered, his heart sinking. One day, Adamma told Obinna about an old woman in the village who had fallen sick. I've been bringing her medicine and helping her with her chores, she said. Obinna admired her even more. You're always helping others, he said. Adamma shrugged. It's what my mother taught me, to care for people in need. Obinna watched her pack more herbs to take to the old woman. He wished he could join her, but he reminded himself that his blindness wouldn't allow it. Her kindness to others made him question if his plan was fair to her. One afternoon, Adamma noticed Obinna's loom gathering dust. Do you miss weaving? She asked. Obinna nodded. It was my joy, he replied. Adamma touched the threads gently. Your work was so beautiful. Maybe one day you'll weave again. Obinna felt a lump in his throat. He wanted to tell her that he could still weave, but his lie held him back. I hope so, he said instead. As she left, he stared at the loom, thinking about how his deceit had taken away not just his sight, but also a part of himself. The villagers held a small celebration one evening with music and dancing. Adamma came to Obinna's hut, encouraging him to join. You don't have to see to enjoy the drums, she said, laughing. Obinna agreed and let her guide him to the village square. As the music played, he imagined dancing with her. His heart ached, knowing he couldn't fully join the festivities. I want to see her dance, he thought, but he kept his eyes shut tight, fearing someone might notice. That night, Obinna lay awake, staring at the ceiling of his hut. How long can I keep this up? He whispered to himself. The weight of this life felt like a heavy stone on his chest. He thought about Adana's visit and how much joy they brought him, but he also thought about how unfair it was to her. She's so kind, and I'm tricking her, he said. Tears filled his eyes as he realized he couldn't hide forever. When Adamma left one afternoon, Obinna opened his eyes and peeked through the window. He saw her walking down the path, greeting everyone she met with a smile. She stopped to help a child who had dropped a basket of mangoes and laughed as she helped him pick them up. Obinna felt his heart swell with admiration. She is a light in this village, he thought, but then guilt hit him again. I don't deserve her kindness, he said, closing the window. One day, Adamma asked Obinna, what do you miss the most about seeing? Obinna paused, unsure how to answer without revealing his secrets. I miss the sunset, he said finally. The colors in the sky. Adamma smiled. I'll describe them to you next time, she promised. Obinna felt a pang in his chest. Her kindness made him feel both happy and sad. She deserves the truth, he thought, but his fear kept him silent. A group of children came to visit Obinna, bringing him fruits they had picked. One child asked, can you really not see anything? Obinna hesitated. then nodded. No, I can't, he said softly. Adamma gently scolded the child for being nosy, but Obinna felt the lie grow heavier in his chest. As the children left, he wondered if they too would see the weight of his guilt. Adamma's mother, Ezinne, visited Obinna one evening. She brought a basket of herbs and sat with him for a while. Adamma cares for you deeply, she said, but be careful, Obinna. Don't hurt her heart. Her words struck him like a thunderbolt. Did she suspect his lie? He nodded silently, unsure how to respond. After she left, a warning echoed in his mind. I never wanted to hurt her, he whispered. But what if I already have? As days turned into weeks, Obinna realized he was falling in love with Adamma. Her laughter, her kindness, and the way she cared for everyone made his heart race. But his love only made his guilt stronger. I wanted someone to see my heart, he thought, but now I am hiding it behind a lie. He began to question his plan more and more, wondering if he could confess the truth. One quiet evening, as Adamma sat by his side, Obinna felt the words rise in his throat. He wanted to tell her everything that he could see, that he had lied to find love. But when he opened his mouth, fear stopped him. What if she hates me? He thought. Instead, he said, Thank you for always being here, Adamma. She smiled, and his heart ached. He knew he couldn't keep the lie forever, but he wasn't ready to tell the truth yet. One sunny morning, a large caravan entered Umucheke. People gathered to see the trader named Chike, who rode a fine horse and wore rich, colorful clothes. His servants carried heavy bags filled with goods from faraway land, beads, fabrics, and jewelry. The villagers whispered excitedly, He must be very rich, one woman said. Chike smiled and greeted everyone with confidence. I've come to trade and find a wife, he announced. His words made many young women goggle, but Adamma only watched from afar, uninterested. Obinna, listening in his heart, felt uneasy. Chike set up a stall in the village square, displaying his treasures. Women admired the shiny beads and colorful fabrics. I've never seen such beauty, they exclaimed. Chike was charming, joking with the villagers, and giving small gifts to the children. The men admired his wealth, and the women whispered about how handsome he was. He's perfect for Adamma, someone said. Obinna overheard these words and felt a pang of jealousy. Will Adamma like him? He wondered, his heart sinking. Chike noticed Adamma walking by with a basket of herbs. Her beauty caught his eyes immediately. Who is that? He asked a villager. That's Adamma, the healer's daughter, the villager replied. Chike approached her with a smile. Hello, Adamma, he said. You are as lovely as the sunrise. Adamma smiled politely, but didn't stop to chat. I must get these herbs to my mother, she said and walked away. Chike was surprised but intrigued. I'll make her mine, he thought confidently. Chike visited Adamma's family, bringing gifts of beads and fabrics. Her father, Nnamdi, was impressed. A wealthy man like you would make a fine husband for my daughter, he said. Adamma listened quietly, her face expressionless. Her mother, Ezinne, nodded in agreement. You could give her a good life, she added. But Adamma wasn't interested. I appreciate your kindness, Chike, but I'm happy helping my family and the village, she said. Chike smiled, determined to change her mind. News of Chike's interest in Adamma spread quickly. They would make a fine pair, one woman said. She deserves someone like him, others agreed, praising Chike's wealth and charm. Obinna overheard these talks and felt his heart tighten. What if Adamma chooses him? He thought, fear creeping into his mind. He wished he could tell her how he felt, but his lie kept him silent. Adamma visited Obinna as usual, bringing food and herbs. There's a new trader in the village, she said casually. He seemed kind, but he's very bold. Obinna forced a smile, hiding his jealousy. Do you like him? He asked, his voice trembling. Adamma laughed slightly. He's not my kind of person, she said. Obinna felt relief wash over him, but also guilt. He wished he could truly see her feelings without hiding behind his blindness. Chike sent gifts to Adamma, a necklace of golden beads and a beautiful red fabric. He's trying too hard, Adamma said, showing the gifts to her mother. Ezinne admired the necklace. He's showing you how much he cares, she said. You should think about it. But Adamma frowned. I don't need riches, Mama, she replied. Obinna, peeking through his window, saw the gifts and felt his jealous grow. Obinna, peeking through his window, saw the gifts and felt his jealousy grow. How can I compete with a man like that? He thought sadly. One afternoon, Chike came to Adamma's house with a confident smile. Adamma, he said, I want to marry you. I can give you a life of comfort and happiness. Adamma's parents were delighted, but Adamma shook her head. Thank you, Chike, but I'm not ready for marriage, she said firmly. Chike was surprised, but didn't give up. I'll wait for you to change your mind, he said, leaving her parents hopeful and Adamma frustrated. That evening, Obinna sat in his hut, thinking about Chike's proposal. How can I compete with his wealth and charm, he wondered. He felt powerless and frustrated. Adamma deserves someone who truly loves her, not someone who just wants to show off, he said to himself. But his lie about being blind made him feel trapped. If I were to tell her the truth, will she forgive me? He thought, torn between fear and love. Adamma visited Obinna and shared her frustration about Chike. He's so sure I'll marry him just because he's rich, she said, shaking her head. Obinna listened, his heart swelling with both relief and sadness. What kind of man do you want? He asked carefully. Adamma smiled softly. Someone kind and honest, she said. Her words made Obinna guilt feel heavier. I'm not honest with her, he thought, struggling with his feeling. Chike continued to charm the villagers, confident that Adamma would eventually say yes. No woman can resist me for long, he told his friends. He even visited Adamma's parents again, reassuring them of his intentions. Adamma just needs time, he said. Nnamdi and Ezinne were hopeful, but Adamma remained firm. He's not the one for me, she told her mother. Chike's confidence made Obinna feel even more worried. One night, Obinna sat by his loom, running his finger over the thread. I can't lose her, he whispered. He thought about Adamma's kindness and strength and how much she meant to him. I have to find a way to show her my heart, he said, making a silent promise to himself. Though he didn't know how, Obinna decided he would fight for her, even if it means risking everything. Would Adamma's parents convince her to marry Chike? Would Chike finally convince Adamma? Or would Obinna reveal the truth? Watch out for part 2.